Have you ever wondered why some women seem to ignite a man's obsession without ever lifting a finger, while others try endlessly yet remain unseen? Picture a woman in a dimly lit room, her presence more striking than the glow of the candles surrounding her. She does not chase, she does not explain, she does not bend. She simply exists with a magnetic quietude that unsettles and awakens something hidden inside the masculine soul. That woman is not ordinary. She is the high priestess, the archetype of sacred mystery, the keeper of secrets that men can sense but never fully claim. Her power is not in what she gives, but in what she withholds. Her silence is not emptiness, it is an initiation, a doorway into something unknown. When a man encounters this kind of energy, something ancient stirs within him. His unconscious projects onto her the anima, the inner feminine he has lost contact with. She becomes the mirror of his longing, the vessel of his unfinished desires, the unfinished poem he has been chasing through his dreams. And yet, she does not meet him in frantic urgency. She remains sovereign, untouched by the hunger in his gaze, and this contrast creates the tension that fuels his obsession. It is not cruelty. It is initiation. Because what is mysterious always invites pursuit, and pursuit is the lifeblood of masculine desire. You might recall a moment when you withheld a response, when you allowed silence to stretch between you and a man who expected quick validation. Notice how the silence thickened the air, how his eyes searched yours more deeply, how his mind worked to fill the gap. That is the first secret of feminine mystique, the sacred pause, the willingness to let emptiness speak louder than words. It awakens a man's imagination, which is infinitely more powerful than anything you could reveal directly. The unknown is always more intoxicating than the known. But to embody this, you must first resist the urge to perform. The ego, desperate for approval, wants to explain, to overshare, to chase certainty. Yet true magnetism does not bloom in performance. It blooms in presence, in allowing your energy to be felt rather than forced. When you lean back into your own stillness, you become like a deep well whose waters cannot be measured at first glance. The man who looks upon you feels compelled to draw closer, to discover, to understand. But you never hand him the map. You let him walk the labyrinth of your mystery. This is not manipulation. It is authenticity, because mystery is not a tactic but a natural quality of the woman who knows her own depth. She is not afraid of being misunderstood. She is not afraid of his projections. She lets them play out, for she knows they are not about her, but about his own inner world reflecting back at him. Jung taught that projection is the first stage of any relationship. The other becomes the canvas of our hidden self. The woman who embodies the high priestess does not rush to correct the painting. She allows him to be spellbound by it, even as she remains grounded in her own truth. Here lies a small action for you. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause instead. Let silence cradle the moment. Watch how he leans in, how the space becomes charged with his curiosity. Let the unsaid do the speaking. This small shift changes the entire dynamic because it signals you are not desperate to be seen. You already see yourself. The archetype of the high priestess is not passive, though she may seem still. She is the guardian of thresholds, the one who decides who may enter the temple and who may not. In the same way, your mystique deepens when you recognize that your attention is not a gift to be scattered, but an offering to be chosen with discernment. Every glance, every word, every moment of your presence must feel earned, not given away casually. That is what makes your energy rare, and what is rare is always desired. Imagine the difference between a gem lying in the street and one locked within a velvet box. One is glanced at and forgotten. The other awakens longing simply because it cannot be touched so easily. In the same way, the woman who embraces her mystique understands the gravity of her own energy. She does not dilute it with constant availability. She becomes selective, and in that selectivity, she becomes radiant. The tension of mystery and sovereignty creates a paradox that no man can fully resolve. It is the paradox of being close yet untouchable, seen yet unreadable, present yet infinite. This paradox is the fire that keeps desire alive long after the first spark. Men lose interest when everything is revealed too soon, when nothing is left to the imagination. But when you leave space for wonder, you become unforgettable. And yet, there is a deeper layer still, hidden beneath the veil of silence and presence. For the true secret of mystique is not just in withholding, but in embodying a truth so powerful that no external validation would add to it. This truth is not learned, it is remembered. It is the memory of being the temple itself, not the seeker. But what happens when the temple itself begins to question its worth? There comes a moment when the temple doubts its sanctity, when the high priestess questions whether her silence is power or emptiness. In this fragile space, many women surrender their mystique, rushing to prove their value by offering more than what was asked, speaking more than what was needed, giving more than what was deserved. Yet the paradox remains. The more you give without being chosen, the less he treasures the gift. The more you reveal without invitation, the less he feels compelled to seek. It is not cruelty that sustains desire, but scarcity. What is scarce demands reverence. To understand this, imagine the forgotten key hidden in the folds of your memory. A key not to his heart, but to your own. You hold it, though at times you misplace it, believing he must return it to you. This key is the authority over your own worth. When you forget you are the keeper of it, you chase. When you remember, you choose. The high priestess archetype embodies this remembrance. She knows her worth is not bestowed by any man's recognition. It radiates from within, and this is precisely what makes her recognition irresistible. A man cannot resist a woman who does not place him at the center of her universe. His unconscious longs for a counterpart who does not collapse into him, but who stands as her own axis. She becomes a mirror he cannot shatter, a presence he cannot consume. He may try, testing her boundaries with charm, with persistence, with promises. Yet the mystique remains when she does not crumble. Each time she honors her own axis, she deepens his attraction, for he recognizes, however unconsciously, that he has encountered something rare. A woman who does not need him, yet chooses him. Consider the tension that arises when a man senses he has not conquered all of you. It unsettles him. His ego wants certainty, total ownership, full disclosure. But your sovereignty denies him this complete possession, and so he remains in pursuit. In this pursuit, he unconsciously grows, for he must rise beyond laziness and complacency. He must evolve to meet what he cannot easily win. And this is the second secret of feminine mystique: sovereignty, the refusal to collapse into dependency. To embody sovereignty does not mean rejection of love. It means standing rooted in yourself, even as you allow intimacy. It means being unafraid to lose him because you cannot lose yourself. In this stance, your presence becomes like the moon, soft, glowing, magnetic, yet forever untouchable, held in her own orbit regardless of who gazes upward. A man may adore the moon, write poems to her, even believe she is his, but she belongs to no one. And yet her light reaches him every night. You might remember a moment when you said no, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. That no, softly spoken, carried more power than 1,000 yeses born of fear. Men do not always admit it, but that no awakens a deeper respect, even admiration. For in that moment, you proved that you belong to yourself first. This is what compels him to return, to reconsider, to rise. The unconscious craves challenge, not indulgence. Without resistance, there is no transformation. Try this small shift in practice. The next time you are tempted to overgive, pause. Ask yourself, does this act honor me or does it erase me? If it erases you, hold back. Allow the space to breathe. Let him step into the silence. When you stop rushing to fill the gaps, you invite him to expand, to pursue, to rise. In this way, your sovereignty becomes the very force that awakens his devotion. Sovereignty also transforms the way you see yourself. No longer are you a woman waiting to be chosen. You are the chooser, the one who decides which energies are permitted to approach. Like the guardian of the temple, you know some seekers are unworthy of entry, and this is not cruelty but wisdom. For when everything is allowed in, the sacred loses its sanctity. By saying no to the wrong, you deepen the yes to the right. This is the paradox of power. Restraint expands worth. Still, there is a shadow that whispers beneath sovereignty, a fear that if you hold too firmly, you will end up alone. This fear is the trick of the ego, which confuses solitude with abandonment. Yet the high priestess knows the difference. Solitude is a return to the temple. Abandonment is the forgetting of it. The more you embrace solitude, the less you fear loss. The less you fear loss, the more freely you can love. But here lies the tension that keeps men restless. How can he touch what cannot be owned? How can he hold what belongs to itself? He may admire, adore, even kneel, but will he ever feel he has reached the core of you? Or will the mystery always remain, just out of reach, luring him deeper into the labyrinth? Every labyrinth. H has its shadowed corridors, places where the seeker feels lost, where echoes grow louder than answers. This is where many men find themselves when drawn into the orbit of a woman who embodies mystique. They enter believing they are hunting her, yet soon discover they are being confronted with themselves. The mirror of projection reflects back his fears, his desires, his wounds. What he believes he wants from her is often what he has long denied within his own psyche. That is why some men run. The mystery forces them to see. The high priestess does not chase them into the darkness. She knows the labyrinth is not hers to solve. She remains at the center, still, radiant, waiting. For some, that waiting is unbearable, for it strips away illusion. Yet for those who dare continue, who dare face what the silence reveals, her presence becomes the catalyst of transformation. This is the third secret of feminine mystique, shadow integration. The willingness to let a man confront not only her light, but also the shadows he unconsciously casts upon her. Think of the cracked mirror hidden in the temple's chamber. A man gazes into it and sees not only her beauty, but also his distortions. He may accuse her of coldness when it is his own insecurity. He may call her distant when it is his own unworthiness speaking. He may demand she explain herself when it is his own confusion he fears. To embody mystique, the woman does not take on his distortions as her truth. She allows him to wrestle with his reflection. For in doing so, she becomes the rarest of all mirrors, the one that does not flatter but awakens. This is where many falter. The need to be liked, to be chosen, to be endlessly understood, drives women to erase their mystery by explaining away the mirror. But mystery is not meant to soothe the ego. It is meant to provoke the unconscious. The woman who understands this becomes unforgettable, not because she entertains, but because she unsettles. Desire is born not from comfort, but from dissonance. It is the pull between longing and uncertainty that keeps a man awake at night, replaying her words, her silences, her gestures, over and over. You have likely seen this in your own life. The times when you revealed everything too soon and interest faded as quickly as it flared. Then the times you held back, perhaps unintentionally, and his curiosity only grew. That contrast is not random. It is psychological law. The imagination thrives on gaps, on unanswered questions, on spaces that demand exploration. When you embody the cracked mirror, you create those gaps not through manipulation, but through authenticity. You refuse to abandon your depth just to soothe his surface. Here is a small shift to embody now. The next time you are misunderstood, resist the urge to over-clarify. Let him sit with his perception. Let the mirror do its work. You may fear he will walk away, but the truth is, the ones who walk were never meant to stay. The ones who remain are those willing to face themselves, and it is only these men who can meet you in your depth. By not rescuing him from the reflection, you invite him into growth. The paradox of shadow integration is that it does not repel love, it refines it. When a man meets a woman who refuses to absorb his projections, he may at first resist, even rage. But if he stays, he evolves. For he learns that intimacy is not about possession, but about revelation. He learns that love is not the erasure of flaws, but the confrontation of them. And through her unwavering presence, he learns that true connection is forged not in fantasy, but in fire. It is this fire that makes mystique unforgettable. A man may meet 1,000 women who give him comfort, who flatter his ego, who reveal all too quickly. But the one who lingers in his soul is the one who demanded he face himself, the one who refused to become a projection, but remained a presence, the one who let the cracked mirror stand. That is the woman he dreams of years later, the woman whose silence still echoes in his memory, the woman whose mystery awakened not just his desire, but his transformation. Yet the question lingers in the quiet. What becomes of the woman who carries such a mirror? Can she bear the weight of being misunderstood, of being blamed, of being called too much or too little, too distant or too deep? Can she hold the archetype of the high priestess without losing herself to loneliness? Or is there another secret hidden even deeper in the temple, waiting to be revealed only when she dares to unlock it? The deeper secret is not found in how others see her, but in how she sees herself when the temple grows quiet. Alone, without the gaze of men, without the constant pull of projections, she confronts the question most fear to ask. Who am I when no one is watching? Many crumble here, for without external reflection they feel invisible. Yet the high priestess thrives here, for her power is rooted not in being seen, but in seeing hers. Elf, it is in solitude that mystique ripens, because the woman who does not flee her own company becomes luminous to others. Mystique is not a mask, but a byproduct of inner union. Jung called it individuation, the process of marrying the shadow and the light, the conscious and unconscious until one becomes whole. When a woman walks this path, she does not beg for completion outside herself. She becomes the completion, her aura shifts. She no longer asks, will he choose me? Instead, she whispers, am I choosing him? This subtle reversal of power is what men feel in their bones but cannot explain. It is why they obsess. It is why they cannot forget. Think of the moon reflected on dark water. Even when clouds obscure her, the memory of her light lingers in the ripples. That is the effect of a woman who embodies mystique. Even in absence, she is present. Even when unseen, she is remembered. For she has cultivated a presence that does not vanish when the room empties. She carries within her the gravity of self-recognition, and that gravity bends the orbit of those who enter her sphere. The forgotten key returns here. At the beginning, it seemed lost, hidden, waiting for someone else to return it to her hand. But in truth, it was never lost. The key has always been within her grasp, though she often disguised it as dependency, as waiting, as need. To reclaim it is to remember, you are not the one locked out. You are the gate itself, and gates do not beg to be opened, they choose who may pass. Here lies the most transformative micro-action you can take. Tonight, in silence, close your eyes and ask yourself, where have I been handing out my key too freely? Where have I begged for entry into temples that were never worthy of me? Then, without judgment, take the key back. Imagine holding it in your hand, feeling the weight of it, the cool metal pressing into your palm. This act may seem symbolic, but symbols shape the unconscious more powerfully than logic ever could. This single ritual awakens a shift that no amount of chasing ever will. A woman who carries her own key becomes untouchable in the most alluring way. Men feel it. They may not name it, but they sense it in her tone, in her gaze, in her refusal to negotiate her value. They sense that she cannot be unlocked by flattery, by pressure, by the crumbs of attention. She requires devotion, presence, respect, not because she demands it with words, but because she embodies it in silence. That embodiment is the very essence of mystique. Yet this path is not without cost. To walk as the high priestess means facing loneliness at times, for not every man can withstand the mystery. Some will demand ease. Some will resent the reflection of their shadow. Some will call her distant, unattainable, or cold. And she must let them go, for mystique cannot survive when diluted for the unworthy. Only the man who dares to rise, who dares to face the cracked mirror and still remain, can meet her at the level of truth. And it is this truth that turns attraction into reverence. This is the grand irony. The more she releases the need to be understood, the more she becomes unforgettable. The less she explains, the more men chase meaning in her silences. The less she gives away, the more they hunger to earn what remains hidden. It is not a game, it is gravity. Mystery is not created, it is remembered. It emerges when a woman stops abandoning herself. But here a final question rises, as sharp as it is liberating. If the forgotten key has always been in her hand, if the cracked mirror was never meant to be repaired, if the temple was never built to please but to initiate, then what remains for the woman who has remembered her mystique fully? What becomes of her when she no longer seeks to be irresistible, but to be sovereign? When sovereignty becomes complete, something unexpected happens. The very obsession that men feel for her no longer defines her power. She no longer measures her worth by their pursuit, nor by the intensity of their longing. Instead, her power shifts inward, flowering into a serenity that is beyond capture. She becomes the woman who does not simply attract, but chooses, and in that choosing, she embodies the final stage of mystique, freedom. For the greatest secret of all is that the irresistible woman does not exist to be consumed. She exists to reveal. This revelation is subtle, almost imperceptible to the outside eye, yet undeniable in its force. She is like fire contained in a lantern. Men draw near not only for warmth, but for guidance, for a light they cannot find in themselves. Yet unlike the flame that flickers desperately for oxygen, her fire is steady, self-sustaining. This steadiness disarms him. It forces him to realize that she is not a prize to be won, but a presence to be honored. In that moment, his ego shatters and his soul awakens. That is the true gravity of her mystique. The woman who walks this path discovers that her allure was never about beauty. Why silence or clever restraint? It was about the union of shadow and light within her, the unshakable sense that she is whole. She does not resist intimacy, but she does not collapse into it either. She welcomes love but remains untouched by fear of its loss. And in this paradox, welcoming yet sovereign, she transcends the games of attraction. She no longer plays the role of pursued or pursuer. She is the axis around which desire revolves. Imagine the man who encounters her now. He feels not just desire but reverence, not just hunger but humility. He senses in her something that both terrifies and awakens him, for he knows he cannot consume her. He can only meet her if he dares, in the vast stillness of her truth. And this meeting transforms him, for it demands he shed the ego's illusions and rise into his own sovereignty. In this way, the irresistible woman does not simply awaken obsession, she awakens evolution. The cracked mirror is no longer a torment here. It is an invitation. He looks into it and no longer blames her for the distortions he sees. Instead, he begins to recognize them as his own. This shift marks the end of projection and the beginning of intimacy. For only when he no longer demands that she carry his shadow can he truly see her, and only then can the temple open its inner chamber, not as surrender, but as communion. This is the hidden reward for the woman who embraces her mystique fully. She does not just attract, she refines. She filters out the unworthy by the sheer force of her being. She does not waste energy on convincing or proving. Her life becomes an altar where only those willing to bow with sincerity may enter. And from this altar, love is no longer a gamble. It is a sacred exchange between two sovereign souls. Now you stand before the same choice. Will you continue diluting your essence, handing out your key to temples unworthy of you, repairing mirrors that were never yours to fix? Or will you take the key back, stand before the cracked mirror, and embrace the temple of yourself in its entirety? The choice is quiet, yet it changes everything. For once you choose sovereignty, mystique ceases to be an effort. It becomes your nature. If you have felt the weight of these words, let it move into action. Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.